So on page 23 in Fitch's book, he defines evangelicalism on the what it means to be evangelical on the bottom of page 22. Then on 23, he defines postmodern and postmodernity as what we've been talking about. This time period that moves us beyond the modern, that can go either in terms of despair, but moves into forms of continental philosophy, Derrida, Lyotard, Baudrillard, Foucault, others. So developments within sociology, theology, and culture. Third, he's going to use modernity in the ways that I defined it with you, that we have Descartes, Hobbes, Locke, Bacon, and others, sort of modern science, foundationalism, that's what he means by modernity. Capitalism and liberalism are ways to describe the kind of culture that we find, especially in America, North America, where the freedom of the markets of capitalism, democratic liberalism, where freedom and rights of the individual are held as the most sacred thing. That's going to be very important to him. But then, as we've moved into this more rational, modern time period, then we move into a time period that many people refer to as a post-Christian time period. So that if we go back in the pre-modern time period, in this assumption of order, Christianity got this dominant place. But as you move into modernity, you could say, well, reason becomes more and more central to human life, but Western culture in particular was so shaped by Christianity that it seemed to kind of hold on, in the habits of our lives, and it still shaped largely the imagination of people's lives. But as reason continues to take over, and by the time we get to modernity, and you get to Nietzsche and others, by the time you get to the end of modernity, all of that kind of Christianity is now fallen, especially in rational culture, enlightened culture. Christianity is further and further pushed to the margins, so that today we would live in a world where I don't want to oversell it. I think Christians still have an awful lot of influence within the nation. We are not without power. It is ridiculous to think we're all the way back to where the early church was in terms of marginalization and persecution. But increasingly we recognize that the culture around us is post-Christian. So think about this, for example. In the modern time period, even though people wouldn't go to church, maybe, the Bible, the narratives, the stories of faith were still extremely familiar in the lives of people. And so authors could write books like East of Eden, and the general populace knew exactly what that was referring to. Today, you could argue there's a kind of biblical illiteracy, a post-Christian world where people don't think just automatically in terms of Christian values. In your generation, it's not a given that people will get married in modernity. People still got married because there was this lingering Christian ethos that shaped culture. Today, people still get married, but there's not a stigma to living together outside of marriage. Largely because increasingly we find ourselves in a more and more post-Christian world. So put those two things together, and you get the thesis of the book. Go back to page 13, where he gives the thesis of what he's going to write about. First sentence of the book. I like when books start by saying the thesis of this book. There's no mystery to that. The thesis of this book is that evangelicalism has given away being the church in North America. Simply put, evangelical churches have forfeited the practices that constitute being the church, either A, by portioning them off to various concerns exterior to the church, or B, by compromising them so badly that they are no longer recognizable as being functions of the church. So that in modernity, for a number of reasons, and we'll look at those reasons as we go, the church gave away the essentials of what it means to be the church, is what he's going to argue. But in postmodernity, in a world where it's either Nietzsche or some socially embodied, historically extended tradition, and in a world that's increasingly post-Christian, he's going to make what's a pretty simple argument, but I've made it fairly complex. It's a gift. Um, he's going to argue that it's essential for us to be the church. It's essential for us to be the church. Um, the church has to socially embody, historically extend its arguments, or nobody's going to believe us. And in a world that's post-Christian, nobody's going to be Christian because they're American. And so the church has to live as witness to the truthfulness of the Christian claims. And that's just essential to who we are. And if that's essential, then we have to get our essential practices back, especially the ones that Fitch is going to argue that we gave away. And so that's the kind of thing that we're going to wrestle with for as we work through Fitch together. I hope that you're doing the reading on Friday. When you come back, we'll jump into chapter 1 and the questions about success and those kinds of things. But I think you're really going to enjoy the book. I think it's going to challenge you. You should have a few minutes left this morning, and so I would love for you to take some time with Brendan and talk about MacIntyre's understanding of traditions, telos, virtues, narratives, practices, those words, and talk through how you see that functioning or not functioning in the church. How are we either a socially embodied, historically extended argument, or how are we not being that? So I would love for you to reflect a little bit with Brendan about what those words make you think about in relationship to the church. And I hope you have a good couple of days. And I'll say I see you Friday, but you'll see me Friday. I'll see you Monday. But Brendan will be with you Friday. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.